Hey everyone, Mr. Hayden here, and I wanted to write two methods that are similar to what will be on Friday's quiz on arrays. So in the first method, it says precondition an array ARR is an array of any length. Postcondition return a new array that is the same as ARR except all twos have been removed. And if any twos have been removed, the length of the new array should reflect that. And then it gives three examples here. So essentially, you're going to need to create a new array whose length will be less than the length of the old array if you've removed any twos from the old array. So like in the first example, we start with 315232, so we're going to want to remove uh, both of both twos, meaning you're getting rid of two twos. And so instead of 315232, I'm going to have 3153 will be the length of the array. Okay, so my strategy here, this is a little bit like the homework problem from the other night where you were removing all leading zeros, except in this case, you don't know where, in this case, the twos are in the array. They could be anywhere or nowhere at all. So you know you're going to have to create an array of some specific length. So the way to determine what the length of the new array is going to be would be to count how many twos there are, and then make a new array whose length is the length of the old one minus how many twos were in there because those twos will be removed. So the first step is I'm going to iterate through my array ARR and count how many twos there are. So this is a pretty standard loop that goes through ARR and checks to see if the element in consideration in each iteration of the loop is a 2, and if it is, it increases count twos by 1. Now this would be a case where you could use a for each loop because you're not making any changes to the array and you don't have to reference adjacent elements, or you're not looking for a specific pattern where the order of the elements needs to be referenced. So if you were doing this as a for each loop, you would say something like this: for each int element in ARR, and then it would be uh, if element equals 2, then count twos plus plus. Okay, so each element is an int, and remember this right here, I could give any name at all. I just call it element. I could call it kangaroo, uh, whatever I wanted to name it, uh, and that would be what it would look like as a for each loop. So once I have counted how many twos there are, now I'm going to declare my new array and make it the length of the original one minus how many twos there are. So I made a new array called no2 array, and it's an array of ints, so I instantiated a new array object over here on the right, whose length is arr.length minus count twos. Okay, so now once I have my old array, I have my new array, I just need to populate my new array. So my strategy is to go through, iterate through each element in ARR, and if it's a 2 or if it's not a 2, I put it into the next open position of my new array. If it is a 2, I just ignore it and move on. So to do that, I'm going to have another variable that's going to keep track of where I am in my new array at any given moment, so that the next non-zero 2 in ARR gets put into that next open position of my new array. So I did that by declaring this variable here, int pos equals 0. And then now I'm going to have a loop that goes through my original array. And by the way, I could use I again. I just used J for whatever reason. Since the scope of I in the loop above is just the loop itself, it would be okay to reuse it. Okay, so at any rate, here I am. I have my loop that goes from position 0 all the way to through the end of array ARR, and I say if ARRJ is not equal to 2, meaning it's the value that needs to go in the new array, I say no2r pos equals ARRJ and pos plus plus. Okay, so that'll put any non-zero value or non-2 value into the next free position of my new array, and then increase what the next free position is, so that the next time I encounter a non-2 element, it gets put into the next empty position. Okay, and then I'm just going to return my node2 ARR. My node2 ARR, which is the array that contains node2s. Okay, so then the other method is, let's see, the precondition ARR is any length greater than 1, postcondition return true if all odd numbered elements have adjacent elements whose values are less than their values. For an array of even length, where the last element will have an odd index, as every array of even length does, only check to see if the element adjacent to it, so there will only be one element adjacent to it, because that odd numbered element will be the last element in the array, so it won't have one after it. So only check to see if the one element adjacent to it on the left has a value less than its value. Okay, so I have two examples here. Smaller sides, 3, 4, 2, 6, -1. That would return true, because 4 and 6 are the odd numbered elements, and on either side of them are two values that are less than it. So 3 and 2 are less than 4, and then 2 and -1 are less than 6. Okay, then the other example, smaller sides, 3, 4, 2, 6, would also return true, because once again, 4 and 6 are the odd numbered elements, but since 6 is the last element, because this array has an even number of elements, we only check to see if 2 is less than 6. There's nothing after it to check. So that's a special case that I'm going to need to consider when I write my method. So I think my strategy is going to be, so when you're looking for a pattern, as I think I've said in class, and you're supposed to return true if the array exhibits that pattern, what you want to do is iterate through the array, look for, instead of looking for to see if each iteration the elements hold that pattern, you want to look for the disqualifying situation and immediately return false when you encounter any disqualifying situation or any set of elements that don't meet the pattern and will cause it to fail. So that means I need to look at each odd numbered elements, and for now let's just consider that we have let's consider that we have an array whose length is odd. So if the array has an odd length greater than 1, right, this wouldn't be true for an array of 1, but fortunately the precondition is it's any length greater than 1. So if it's an odd length, it's going to be 3. It's going to have a length that's 3 or more, and every odd element is going to have elements on either side of it. So my strategy then would be to just hit all the odd numbered elements and check to see on either side of the element if the values are smaller than what that odd numbered element is. Okay, now in the case of an even length array, whose length is greater than 1, I'm going to have one last element that is not going to have anything to the right of it, because the last odd numbered element is going to be the last element in the array. So here, in this second case, my array's length is 4, and there's a 6. That's the last odd numbered element, in which case I need to make sure that only the element before it is less than it. So what my strategy then is going to be, in the case of even numbered array, is check to see if the last element has an element in front of it less than it. If it does not, if it has an element in front of it that is greater than or equal to it, then I'm going to immediately return false. Okay. Otherwise, let's see. I think that's going to be, yeah. Otherwise, I will continue and go through the rest of the array. And after I've handled that special situation, then I can just treat all the arrays as the same and go through them and do that test to see what's on either side of each odd numbered element. So here we go. So I say, okay, if ARR.length mod 2 equals 0, that means I have an even numbered array, and ARR.length minus 2, which would be the second element from the end, is greater than or equal to ARR, and then it would be ARR.length minus 1. So ARR.length minus 1 is the index of the last element. So ARR.length minus 1 is the value of the last element in the array. So this is this situation right here. 6 is my ARR.length minus 1, and 2 is my ARR.length minus 2. So if the 2 was greater than or equal to the 6 instead of being less than it, then I would immediately return false, which is what I do. Okay, now I have that last element, that last odd element taken care of. So I just now need to, in the even case, I need to go through the rest of the array, all right, and look on either side of the odd elements. And if I find a disqualifying case, return false. So now I'm only looking at the odd elements, so I'm going to start at 1, and I'm going to continue as long as I is less than ARR.length minus 1, not just ARR.length. So this takes into consideration the fact that, actually, you know what? No, I do need ARR.length minus 1. And then I plus equals 2, and then it's going to be if ARR I minus 1 is greater than or equal to ARRI, or ARRI plus 1 is greater than or equal to ARRI, return false. And then finally, I'm going to return true at the very end. Okay, so that was kind of a wordy one to explain. Hopefully I did a decent job of it. There isn't much code to it, but kind of doing the explanation was a little more than I thought it was going to be. But I hope you got something out of it, and those are two similar problems as to what will be on tomorrow's quiz. All right, take care, and if you have any questions, email me or stop by today.